Hey, hi all. Welcome back to BR at Knowledge Center. In this session, we'll see how we are going to configure Locust configurations. So far, what we have done is we are just creating a Locust file with load test scripts and run through, spontaneously given user count or runtime or span time. Let us take an example like when you run through a UI. I think you are going to mentioning the users count, virtual users count, and then span time where it is adding the user count per second, and then you are hitting span button. And otherwise you are running through CLI, you are just mentioning hyphen u as the user count and hyphen t as the kind of time you are going to give it for span time, and otherwise hyphen r for runtime, or hyphen headless for no omitting UI and displaying the output on the console kind of stuff. But I just wanted to keep all this stuff in one file and wanted to run through that without mentioning in the command or UI. So how to do that? So to do that, we have different approaches. One thing is setting of environment variables, where you can set the environment variables with those configurations, and then this locust will automatically fetch through environment variables. Otherwise, so in the root level, root folder of the locust files, you have to create a locust .conf file where you have to mention all the configurations so that it will default take it through that config file. Let's see how we are going to do that. I'm just sharing my Visual Studio Coder. This is what the previous example where it is fetching two tasks with the locations API, getting of the stuff, the task one, getting of tasks, and then the second task we're just displaying the response based on the response code it is returning. Okay, now so to run this, I think we are just run through, this is something we are running through, right? Giving of the stuff. Let me do that. Giving of this stuff, right? Giving of locust minus of locust file and minus or hyphen u and hyphen t and hyphen headless. Now I don't want to do all this nonsense, so I just wanted to run this way, like locust minus of and locust file. So if you're not having any configuration file, what it will do is by default it will look for locust configuration file in the root level. This is where root level means current working directory. This is a path locust advanced. So in this folder, it looks for locust configuration file. If it is not finding there, then it will look for environment variables. They're also not configured out. Then it basically opens your locust web UI and then asking for to mention the user count and the span time, right? So now let us see how we are going to do that. If you come to here, this is my root level folder, right? So here you need to create a file called locust conf. So now here in this file, you have to mention whatever configurations you wanted to apply for your load test. So for my web API testing, I just wanted to have a couple of things here. One thing is first headless, because I wanted to always run without having UI. So headless equal to true, right? And host, I'm going to define here itself, HTTP and then local host. I think 5190. Is it right? Let me see that. Yeah, 5190. I'm only defining here. I think no need to have double quotes anyway. It will by default takes that in all the values in the double quotes. And then users here, I'm going to mention it. Let us say 10 users, right? And then I'm going to specify span rate here. That means each per second, how many users you are going to add it. Let me add two users, right? And then I'm going to say that another thing was only summary. There are a couple of options also. We have only summary. I wanted to display here. You can say only summary equal to true. And sometimes if you wanted to export your results to CSV or something, you can say that API stats file. This way you can give it so that it will export and save it as API stats CSV, or you can specify HTML and file name so that it will save stats in HTML file. Okay, but we'll check this first, and if you want, you can add other properties as well. For now, I just only required users span time. Of course, runtime I can add it here. runtime. So total runtime is 10 seconds. So always you can define with seconds or minutes, or uh, hours means you can specify h. So that way I think it is recognizing the time, how it is mapping to your runtime or span rate. Okay. Now with these configurations, how I'm going to run through. So if this file is available in the current directory, no need of mentioning anything here. So by default, it will take care of it. Let us see that. So when I run through this, let me see what files I have right now. This is my root level. I have configuration file, and this is my then locust view file, right? When I just run through this all nonsense, I'm just removing it. Just say Python file. When I hit this particular button, then it started looking at my root folder. It found that. Then it started running now. You can see here. So all unnecessary summary, it has been removed. It is something saying getting failure. Not sure of that. So what might be the problem is, how can we say that? Let me look into that. It is something 997. Okay, let me clear that. Going back to my script. So HTTPS, I mentioned it. I just it is only HTTP. It's not HTTP something like that. I think here you can pull through that self dot host. That way it is coming out. Self dot host equal to not here, instead of this here itself. Okay, and now try to run that, so that how it is considering my configurations. Now it started taking my, yes, task 2, fetching all the stuff and getting of all locations. Super, it started working by taking the locations, locust default configurations. And if you look at the time here, go back to your result set summary here. Look at here how it started, going back, going back, going back. So ramping to 10 users at rate of 2 users per second. This is what we mentioned our configuration file. Let's see that. Open that locust config file and go to your result set. Now see that I mentioned 10 users, ramping to 10 users, right? At rate of 2 users per second. This is span time. I mentioned 2. That means it is going to add or no remove user count for 1 second. And this is the default time I mentioned it. That means it is going to run till 10 seconds. Okay, so 10 seconds it is going to run through, hence it is hitting so many times here. 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So in the 10 seconds of time, it has sent so many times here, right? And then once it reaches 10 seconds, it automatically, stop my testing. Now you can see the results at here. So total it sent 43 requests. Now I'm going to change this to, like, 5 users, and this is just 5 seconds, or I can say 4 users, and save that. Okay, now you'll start running this, just clearing this. I'm not mentioning any user count or rating or fan time. So it started running through here. Now how many requests? It is 12 requests. Earlier it has 43 plus, now it is 12 requests. So 12 requests means the default time we mentioned is 4 users, rate of 2. So time was mentioned 5 seconds, right? If you see here, 5 seconds were mentioned. So starting 4 users, and then it is adding 2, right? So every second it is adding 2, right? 5 seconds. So in between that, it is adding almost 8 users. Totally, it is 12 users. 12 times it went to web server for fetching this data. 12 requests has been sent to web server to get the locations. Super, that's fine. So this is how we are going to define the configuration in one place. Suppose if we wanted to run for kind of scenario, I wanted to run for 50 users, span rate is something 10 users for that. And this is I'm just defining as 120 seconds, right? When I save it, it is going to run for 50 users, right? If I just start this, what it will do is it start hitting off, all my API stuff, right? And finally, once the time is finished out, and it come out from my running of test and show you the summary. If you wanted to stop that, just press Ctrl C. It will finish it out and show you the request so far it has been executed. If you look at here, ramping to 50 users at rate of 10 per second. Okay, so this is something you need to look at this. You like this, you can define your configuration. Sometimes I wanted to run my script of 50 users, 100 users, 200 users. So what you need to do is you need to create different configuration files here and map to your the locust file. So this is something locust default configuration file. Now I wanted to create my own file. Let us say I'm just renaming this to uh, something 50 users. Let me do that. This is something for 100 users, and I'm just changing this to 100, and for span rate is 10, and this is something I'll run for 10 minutes. I'm just saving it. This is my locust 100 users config file. So when I run this, it won't take this as an default configuration, because this is not in the kind of standard naming like locust.config. It was a different name. So to get this map to your current test, what you need to do is, here we have an option in locust that hyphen config. So if you look at this hyphen config, where is that? To file and paste master and worker tag, and this is something exporting log file and version. Didn't see that config file. This thing hyphen config. So you use that option and specify the different locust configuration path. Let us say that this is my test, right? I'm just saying hyphen config, and I'll say the name of my locust configuration file path here under users.conf. When I hit that, it will get the settings from that file. You can see here. So it is going to run for 100 users. I'm just stopping this now, so that we'll see like from where it is taking the configurations. I'm just going to top and see like from where it is running. Oops, so much of content is coming. Okay, if we look at here, oh my god, come on to top, so much of user stuff. Now here, look at here, ramping to 100 users at rate of 10 users per second, right? So it has taken, 100 users. That means the external file was considered here as part of configurations. So if you wanted to mention your explicitly defined file with different file name, then you have to use hyphen config option along with your locust, like hyphen config and the file name. Like that, you can define these files in different way. This is for 200, and I'm going to set this as 200 users. It's 200, and the ramping time would be 5 something, and this is, I'm going to run it for 15 minutes. I think 10 minutes is fine for me. And a similar way, I think to run this, again you have to use same command, right? Here again, you are going to say 200 config. Then it will consider the stuff is ramping to 200 with us. Okay, so it started fetching and loop through all the values and get it displayed all the request. Okay, so this way I think you can specify that. If you wanted to export stuff, I think you can use CSV equal to something stats, so that it will create the file in the root level, right? Let us say that I think I'll use simple one, and 10, and this is I think 5. I think this is span time is 2, and this is something 5 seconds. See that? So if you define this way, and if you run through this, right? Sorry. Now it will consider the settings, right? And it will create here, if you look at stats, exceptions, stats, failures, stats, history, stats. You can see that results are exported here. So I don't see any failure here, exceptions I don't see here. I only see stats here, and the stats are coming out here. Type, name, request count, failure count, median, response time, average, everything being captured and put it here in your GitLab folder. Okay, and similar way, if you wanted to capture things and save into a HTML file, right? So what you need to do is you need to give this as HTML, right? And just run through your same script so that it will create HTML file, and then put all your stuff into uh, your HTML file. Now you can look at here stats, right? This was something HTML file, you can see. You can run through this something, you can see that how it is coming out. I think you have to rename this first. Okay, it is not able to identify what the file it is. Okay, so just rename this with the .html, and then now open with live server and see that stats are coming this way. I think something happened. Something would happen. Let me try one more time and see like how it is creating. Okay, going to file here, and in my configure file, this thing I'm using it. Let me create that with the extension and then start running this. It will run through and get the values and put it into HTML. Once it is done, only it is going to create. Now you can see here, this is the HTML. You open it. Oh my god, still it is something, it is coming out. Final ratio. I think you have to check that. What might be the problem here in it, or coming out with the wrong value. So this way it is generating the HTML stuff and CSV files if you wanted it. So all these things are coming through these configurations from the single place instead of keeping in the CLI. So if you're putting all this stuff in CLI or CD process, and then you just mention the commands and configure the configuration file to run through different scenarios with 100 and 200 users, then it will fetch the configuration from that location locust config file, and then it start executing your no locust file with that scenario. Okay, so I hope you understand like how we are going to define the configurations of your locust, so how it is fetching from here and running through. Okay, so thanks for listening to this video, and please subscribe this channel for more videos. Thank you.